and welcome Richmond, California, and beyond. Tonight we are sure to have a spirited and informative Richmond mayoral debate. Tonight's debate is brought to you by the great people at the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council, as well as our host, Hilltop Community Church. Special thanks to Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council President Arto Rinteela. I want to ask that everyone here in tonight's audience be sure to silence your cell phone and remind everyone that tonight's broadcast will be live on the Hilltop Community Church Facebook page, as well as the Hilltop Community Church YouTube page and the Everybody's Richmond, California Facebook group. This will be a live stream and will also be recorded for later viewing. The candidates here tonight have reviewed and agreed to the rules of this debate, which include no scripts, no notes, no electronic devices up on the dais. You'll hear straight from the candidates. We are going to do a 2-minute introduction for each candidate, 80-second answers to each question, and a 2-minute closing statement. The questions have been crafted by the good folks at the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council. Don Gosney here in the front row will be monitoring the timer, and he'll be flashing a yellow light at 15 seconds. So candidates, please see that, and please be mindful of finishing your remarks within the time frame. I want to speak to the Richmond residents and beyond. Be sure to vote. Our democracy is only as strong as our participation. And this holiday season, let's all shop local. Let's use our dollars to support our community. With that, I will also introduce myself. I am Robert Rogers. I'm your volunteer moderator tonight, and I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to introduce our candidates from left to right, and then we will go into the opening statements. Far left is Shawn Dunning. To his left is Nat Bates. To his left is Eduardo Martinez. And to his left is Mark Wassberg. We'll begin tonight on the far left with Shawn Dunning, and we'll start with your introductory statement. Mr. Dunning, 2 minutes, please.
Good evening. This election is a referendum. If the current state of affairs in Richmond concern you, or if you'd like to see your leaders work together to solve problems, then follow the advice of the editorial board of the East Bay Times and select me as your next mayor. There's been just too much going on in the city to overlook. It's time to come together. I'm prepared for this job, and I'm highly motivated to serve you. It's time that we stop fighting. It's time that we come together, we stop the bickering, stop digging in our heels over the ideological divides, and meet together on common ground so we can build a common future together. After meeting with over 4,000 people from every single neighborhood in this city, I understand our common goals. You want a better Richmond that is safe, clean, and fair for everyone. We can get there, but we gotta come together to do it. The future of Richmond can no longer be forged by fighting the good fight, or just simply being right, especially if the opposition is your neighbor. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of differences. Some people think it's okay to raise tax on businesses 8,000% or reduce police services, others don't. But at the end of the day, we all care about the same needs. We all want to belong. We all want to be safe. We need to stop fighting against each other. We need to stop fighting against your way versus my way, and together build our way. With me as your mayor, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn Dunning. Nat Bates.
Thank you, everyone. I want to express my appreciation to Pastor Hagan for allowing us to use this beautiful facility. I'm no stranger to any of you. You know me. Many of us grew up together. Started perhaps with the project for those a little bit older. And that was a time when housing was very rare for African Americans and Latinos to find a location. This was one of the first developments here at Hilltop that allowed that opportunity. I've been fighting with you for years. We fought to stop the continuation of trying to come into this school, this area. We fought against the homeless that tried to come in here. We fought so many battles, and I've always been there for you, and you've always been there for me. I want to acknowledge Art, your chairman of the Hilltop Fairmede Neighborhood Council, who has been an extraordinary leader in working together with the city council. From my perspective, the most important thing that we have to deal with is restoring our police department. None of you feel safe at night. All the departments we have, the one that you want most is public safety. If there's someone ill and fall and hurt themselves, you want the EMT. Someone trying to break into your home, you want the police. They have this funded the police to the point where we're at 197, now we're at 97 thereabouts. That's no way to run a city. That is my #1 priority, as well as economic development. I urge you respectfully and request your support November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat Bates. Next, Eduardo Martinez.
Thank you for having us here. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your interest in civic events. Arto and I have collaborated on many things, which shows that I know how to work with people. The Democratic Party endorsed me because I have democratic values, and I'm sure you do too. The fire union endorsed me because they know I understand public safety. And the Sierra Club and other environmental organizations endorsed me because they know I understand the importance of having clean air, clean water, and clean earth. So I'm asking you to stand with me and not to fall into this imagined battle, because we have been getting things done. Councilmember Bates and I have been with the city long enough to understand how it works, and we have been able to work together even though we have opposing views. The editorial by Borenstein was a lot of nonsense, because he says that our opponent, Dunning, understands city finances more than we do. And yet, at the same time, he praised the city for things that we did, especially the swap trades that had eaten up $60 million of our funds. So that was done before we got here, and we have gotten rid of it. And so we're and doing that actually brought our ratings up. So I hope that you will listen to all of us and understand when someone is talking factual and when someone is making things up. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo Martinez. Next, Mark Wassberg.
I lived in Richmond and San Pablo for the last 60 years. I've seen the changes. You cannot have a government in Richmond, a city council that supports criminals. We all know what they did. Stopping police checkpoints, giving people fraudulent ID cards, letting them drive illegally, aiding and abetting criminals from the federal government called the sanctuary city. In 2004, Richmond was designated the most violent city in the state. It was like that for almost 7 years. Ever since the RPA got into office, the homicide rate has quadrupled. I know, I was there for 6 years. I filmed the violence. I was with Shoemake and Newsom and Hatchet and the Reverend George Brown. They say we're going to bring people together. You're not going to bring people together when the RPA is in office. You see what's going on with the city council, 5-2, 5-2, 5-2. If you're not RPA, you ain't gonna get nothing done. If you ain't got no votes, you might forget it. You're gonna be a lame duck mayor. Just like the mayor we have now. He can't do nothing, but I could change that. If I have to go to court and sue my own city to get a executive order done, I'll do it. I'll make sure the money's gonna go back to the police. There ain't gonna be no more homeless campers here in Richmond. We know that the RPA has funded these homeless camps. They told the police not to enforce the law. What kind of law enforcement are you going to have when the city council tells the police chief, let the criminals do what they want to do? Just like I said, you cannot have people in office that's going to support criminals. Our country was founded under constitutional law for your safety and for your rights. This government we have right now don't believe in any laws. We've seen that time and time again. The police on the open forum complaining about the RPA funding the police. The fire department was complaining that they don't have enough people, have enough money to do their job. You vote for me, I'll get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Wassberg. This concludes our opening statement section. I want to remind everyone at the audience and at home, thank you so much to the Hilltop Community Church for hosting in this beautiful event. And Hilltop Community Church YouTube and Facebook page and the Everybody's Richmond Facebook page. These are all places where we are broadcasting live, and we ask you to like, share, comment, spread the word so more people can see our mayoral candidates and can be integrated into the democratic process. Thank you so much. We're now going to go into our questions. Each question will get 80 seconds for a response from each candidate. These questions were prepared by the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council, and I will read them verbatim. We will start on one end for the first question, and then start at the other end for the second, and so on and so forth. So we're going to start with question 1 on my far right with Mark Wassberg, and we're going to proceed down the line from him. Question 1. Since safety seems to be the #1 issue here in the Northern District, and police staffing is at an all-time low, do you feel the police department should hire more officers? Yes or no, and explain.
Law enforcement has a constitutional right to protect your safety. We know what the city government has done. People don't feel safe. People are always complaining on the open forum. Crime has rose ever since they defunded the police. Look what happened to our country right now. It's just totally in chaos. You put me as mayor, I will make sure that the police has a full staff and then some. Because right now, people don't feel safe at all. You hear it on the open forum all the time, people complaining. But the city council is not giving you that right. Matter of fact, they even want to cut the police more. They even passed an ordinance saying they can't get no backup from other cities. So the police department get in the major scuffle, all right, they're doomed. People got to realize what's really happening with our government. It's like I said, you have the right to be safe. You have the right to have police officers, law enforcement to protect you, and the city council is taking away that right for you. I mean, you walk out of your home, people are scared every day they're going to get mugged, they're going to get shot. One guy got murdered because someone was stealing his catalytic converter. You want that in Richmond? The RPA don't care. They want to get rid of the police.
Thank you, Eduardo Martinez.
Yeah, this is a fallacy in saying that the city police department is underfunded. The police city department has always had enough money to hire more officers. They still have money to hire 7 officers. At one point they had money to hire 15 officers. What this does is it holds money in the budget and it can't be used. And we have other needs that need to be filled. If the police could find the people, they could be hired. And at that point we could talk about putting in more money for more officers. But until that happens, it's a moot point. We can't save money for people and jobs that aren't there. This is a national problem. It's not just Richmond. It's not just California. It's across the United States. There is a paucity of people wanting to be policemen. Why is this? There's a change in culture. Well, we need to make sure that we have public safety, not only with police, but also with other services. Someone who can deal with mental health issues, someone who can deal with the homeless. So there's all kinds of services that we could use the money for.
Thank you. Nat Bates.
Let's be real. Of all the candidates, I'm the only candidate that have worked in the criminal justice field, retired from Alameda County after 30 plus years. If I'm elected here, the first thing I want to do is bring the chief of police, aligned management staff, and one or two of the patrolmen who are out there every day. No one in this city or any city knows how many police officers we need. You've got to depend upon the experts. I want them to tell me what do they need and where do they need them. That's the only way we can eradicate this particular crime element that we have. Amateurs up here are micromanaging the police department, like trying to tell a doctor how to operate. They don't know anything about police work. None of them have been on a police ride to find out what the policemen are doing. I've been doing that for 30 plus years. Depend upon your chief of police and her management staff to come back with a program and align level of staffing that will make this city safe. Don't listen to these politicians. They don't know what they're talking about.
Thank you. Shawn Dunning.
So just quickly to clear the record, in my career I've worked with the U.S. Probation Department in 6 different states across the U.S. With senior probation officers, helping them develop emotional intelligence in the work that they do. Several years ago, Richmond Police Department hired me to come on board to bring my conflict resolution skills to bear, to help our nationally recognized community-involved policing services. That actually involved me going off to the police academy and receiving police training. I actually do know a thing or two about how the police department works and what doesn't work. And what I know is that we were recognized by the Obama administration as leading the way in the community-involved policing models. Nationally recognized. And then, for no reason other than what happened in Minnesota, our budget started getting cut even further. We obviously need more. Just ask our expert Chief Piece of French, the one and only African-American female officer or chief in the state of California, who's from here, who's worked her way up in this career. She knows what she's talking about. She knows Richmond, and she says we need 165 officers to get back to what we were doing. We've got a lot of work to do here. I understand what works and what doesn't work and how to get us there. And the problem is not imagined. Thank you.
Thank you. Second question, and we will start from the far left with Shawn Dunning. And I will let candidates know I'm going to repeat the question after the first 2 candidates answer, just as a refresher. Some of these questions are multi-layered and complex. And again, thank you very much. The questions have been crafted by the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council, and I have agreed to read them verbatim. Question 2, beginning with Shawn Dunning. The Richmond Police Department is having trouble recruiting officers. Since this seems to be a national trend, if elected, would you vote in favor of offering incentives to help attract new officers? And if so, what types of incentives?
The number one reason we're having such a hard time recruiting officers is because of a leadership crisis in Richmond. Last year when our city council voted to reduce our police budget by $3 million, the process was done in such an ineffective way that 26 Richmond police officers left us. So to say that we have funding to fill, to hire unfilled positions, it's a little bit misleading. Because you got to take into account why we have so many unfilled positions. It's not primarily because it's hard to recruit people. It's because we lost so many in that crisis. What was happening last year when that went on? There was a lot of posturing about it being right or wrong, but we didn't have any leaders actually bringing people together for a collaborative process to find a way forward that would have satisfied with enough confidence having sufficient police services and sufficient non-law enforcement related support. We need both. This should not be a false dichotomy of one or the other. So yes, we need to bring in more. We can do that when we restore confidence, and we restore confidence by making a commitment in policy, in an ordinance, to have a minimum staffing level, and I will work toward that. Thank you.
There's a multitude of problems why we're losing staff. One, the lack of council support. Wherever you work, you just don't like to be working in an area that your management people and the people in authority disintegrate in you. The second thing is that our salary has been low. We finally came forward last Tuesday with a salary proposal that we think will be competitive. People don't come to Richmond just because it's named Richmond. They come because of the benefits. If your salaries are on a parallel with San Pablo, El Cerrito, Oakland, and so forth, you can recruit. Once you're here, it's important that the city council show support. We have a recruiting mechanism. I'd like to see us go and recruit some people from the military. There's two systems. There's a California PERS system and a county system. If you work in the county, you can transfer over and work for a city. We can bring back some of the employees that are retired, up to 960 hours. Other than that, we have to be competitive with the other jurisdictions if we want to get the top quality police officers.
I will now repeat the question. The Richmond Police Department is having trouble recruiting officers. Since this seems to be a national trend, if elected, would you vote in favor of offering incentives to help attract new officers? And if so, what types of incentives? Eduardo Martinez, please.
Well, I can't talk about the incentives because we're negotiating that, and we'll talk about that after the contract is passed. But last night, at the last city council, we elected to bring back Officer Torona to help the police department. I call that support. Some people won't. I don't know why, but I call that support. We want to support the police department, and it seems that anytime we have a question, it's translated into not supporting. It's translated into hating. I don't believe that questioning is hating. It's wanting to make sure that your police department is the best police department there is. Now, we have always had a great police department, although there have been issues. For instance, when our chief, Chris Magnus, was sued by 3 officers for racial discrimination, when our chief Magnus was sued by another officer for sexual improprieties, when our police department was in litigation for Celeste Wap and sexual misconduct. There's been a lot of things that we need to question.
As mayor, I'll try everything I can to bring back money to the police and hire police. But the problem is, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, there was not one word about defunding the police until after the Floyd incident. It all took off. We all know what was happening. The police became the enemy. People assassinating police. It was going to the police officers' homes, attacking their homes, making them look like the criminal. In every profession, you're going to have crime. The problem is, even the Richmond PD even admitted, they're not going to enforce the law because they're not getting no help from the city council. They're not going to get no respect for the city council. They're defunding the police. This is what the city council's doing. And you have people come and say, oh no, we're for the police. How are you going to be police when you defund the police and stand up for criminals? Come on, people, this is real. This is no joke. They even said, the police department even said, I'm not going to enforce the law. I'm not going harm's way because I'm not getting no support by the city council. It's all a trend across the whole entire nation, almost in democratic cities. They want to get rid of the police. They got some dumb idea that they're going to have this task force to take the place of the police when somebody's stealing your catalytic converter. You got a 5150 with a gun. As I'm mayor, I want to make sure that you have the right to be safe under the constitutional law, and I'll bring back the police.
Thank you. We now move on to question number 3. We will begin with you, Mr. Wassberg, and proceed to your right. We would like to know if there is something you have heard about yourself on the campaign trail that you do not agree with and would like to address. This begins with you, Mr. Wassberg. I'll repeat the question. We would like to know if there is something you have heard about yourself on the campaign trail that you do not agree with and would like to address.
Well, so far I've been talking to people. I haven't had no problems. Everybody's been agreeing with me, except the criminals. They don't like the police. They don't like to be arrested. Everybody else say, hey, everybody just calling me mayor. I said, okay, that's good. We hope you become mayor. This one guy didn't see me before. He goes, I'll go ahead and vote for you. I said, fine, I have no problem. I need all the votes I can get. There's been a few people been giving me the eye and a few other things, because I stand up for law and order. Because I have to, because I've taken the oath to the Constitution. I have to honor that oath. I just can't go in office and take a note to the Constitution and stab it in the back like the RPA's been doing. Not one time did they honor any of your constitutional rights or laws. But like I said, I've been getting a lot of good feedback, and my lady friend gave me $5. I said, what's this for? She goes, it's for your campaign. I said, okay, I'll take all I can get. But the fact is, I'm going to get things done, okay? I'll sign an executive order. If I have any problems, I'll go straight to federal court, and I'll win every time because I know the city council is not respecting our laws because I got all the proof I need.
Well, I don't know where to begin. It seems to be a continual onslaught of misinformation. But at the crux of it is trying to slander me for belonging to an organization. It's almost as if it's a crime to belong to an organization. I'm a member of the RPA, I'm proud of it. And I am also an individual. I'm a Democrat, I'm proud of it. But I'm also an individual. I have my own thoughts. I have my own vision of what this city should become. And it is founded in values, not ideology. Values. And they're the same values I believe that you have. And when I speak of them, it's twisted around to make it sound like I'm a robot controlled by an organization, by a cult. I can tell you that the Richmond Progressive Alliance, and I say alliance because that word means that it's a lot of organizations with a lot of different beliefs coming together around the same value. And that is belief in the citizens, in the people of Richmond. That's what we stand for.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question. We would like to know if there is something you have heard about yourself on the campaign trail that you do not agree with and would like to address.
I don't know about you, but I cannot hear the sound. Is the audience hear the question? Well,
I apologize. Thank you, Nat Bates. I'll try to speak a little louder. Can you hear me well now?
Yeah, it's the acoustics. It bounces back and forth and it's hard to hear up here.
Does it help when I speak louder? I will speak louder. Thank you. We would like to know if there is something you have heard about yourself on the campaign trail that you do not agree with and would like to address.
Well, not really. Been in this business as long as I have. I'm not surprised at anything that happens. It's just the nature of politics. I do think that we have individuals here running. They have they're sincere. They have the city of Richmond at heart. Mr. Wassberg is an individual that has a little problem articulating himself in the proper manner, but he's for real and he has good points. My colleague, Mr. Eduardo, my vice mayor, we just differ in philosophy. We're great friends. Mr. Dunning, I think, is a up-and-coming young man that needs experience, needs to understand what is going on out there in the arena. You can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. And when you're in those situations for a long period of time, you begin to understand how you can work with others. I work with all of my colleagues, and it's a matter of being a statesman versus a politician, and that means you got to work with each and every one. Sometimes you get a vote from my colleague here, next time I don't. But that's the name of the game. Thank you.
Mr. Bates' political experience is unrivaled by anybody. I'm bringing a different resume to the table. And so that's not actually a mistruth, it's just a different kind of experience. But what I would say is, generally speaking, in terms of the candidates, I'm not hearing us say, untrue things about each other. And if it were just us, we'd probably have a much more informed process. What's frustrating and disappointing is to see how, particularly on social media, things get thrown around that are not true, and simply not fair, and really not helpful. For democracy to work, it's critical that we have an accurately informed people. And take the difference between me and Nat. He has decades of political experience. I have a couple decades of conflict resolution and peace building experience. Different kind of experience. As long as you all know that that's what it is, you can make the decision. You're making an informed decision. Meanwhile, I hear people from Eduardo's camp, and I'm not saying it's him, but say things like, I'm pro-Chevron, or I'm pro-big business. That's simply not true at all. But what people have a hard time understanding is that when it comes to conflict resolution, you need to have all voices at the table. And what I'm hearing from some hardliners is they think I shouldn't even give someone a voice at the table. So perhaps it's an intellectual challenge, I don't know.
Thank you. We will move on to question 4. Before I do, I want to remind everyone, our local and global online audience is growing as we speak. Please help us with that. Like, share, love, comment, do all you can on the Hilltop Community Church Facebook page live stream so you can share this spirited debate with everyone in the community. Question number 4, we begin with you, Mr. Dunning. The Richmond Progressive Alliance is a well-known organization in Richmond. 4 of our council members are RPA members. What does the name Richmond Progressive Alliance mean to you?
I think that's a great question. The name it means whatever they want it to mean, but I'll tell you what the Richmond Progressive Alliance means to me. A highly organized, highly passionate group of people who care deeply about what they believe in. Frankly, I'm inspired by that. If everyone in Richmond was as passionate and as dedicated to what they believe in as the RPA is, we could get a lot done. My concern is not about their values, not about the people. I do not want to run the RPA out of town. Some people do. That's not my point at all. I want them here. I want them at the table. I just don't want them to own the table because of the track record of doing things apparently without listening to or including people who disagree with them. and saying things like, and this is almost a quote, I was in a meeting where I heard someone say, "We have the majority, let's push this through." That's not the way our democracy ought to work. We need to listen to all voices. We need to leverage all perspectives. That's my expertise. So if the RPA left town, I don't think we'd be able to get as much done. I want them there. I just don't want them to act with impunity and own the table. Thank you.
Well, since the RPA have gained control over the city, we have been going downhill, as a matter of fact. One of the problems I think the RPA has is being a socialist. The attitude is that your money, my money, and everyone else's money ought to be pooled and given to those who don't have any money. They don't like businesses, especially big businesses. They don't seem to understand that business is what keeps a city financially moving. They don't like the police, the re-imaging committee. What happens in Minneapolis, all of a sudden there's a used to cut the police department. Each city has its own problems, and you cannot use what's going on in other parts of the country. But there are people who don't like the police. And unfortunately, that's been so far the RPA's stand. You've got to bring in all the parties together and work with mutual respect. You've got to keep businesses here. Don't let them go to other cities. That Measure U was a disaster. And I know many of you voted for it, but you did not understand the implications that we are finding today.
Thank you. I will repeat the question. The Richmond Progressive Alliance is a well-known organization in Richmond. 4 of our council members are RPA members. What does the name Richmond Progressive Alliance mean to you?
The Richmond Progressive Alliance means opportunity. It means training youth to be part of the civic engagement. It means questioning our residents, finding out what the history of Richmond is. It means working with everyone to achieve a city that is for everyone. Mr. Dunning talks about a table. That table's always been here. It's not as if there's not a table. And that table for the longest time has been owned by big business. When the RPA came along, they helped people to sit at that table. So some people think that we crashed that table and have taken over it. But when there's voices that hadn't been heard before and they're finally being forced to be listened to, it's almost as if you're not listening to us. That's not true. We listen to everyone. In fact, there are RPA members who have voted against what the RPA wanted. I'm one of them. I have voted against RPA. Arto Rinteela has voted against RPA. So it's not like a cult. This is a democratic organization, and we allow people to think for themselves. One thing we do is we debate among ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I apologize. Please, candidates, be mindful of the time when you can. Mr. Wassberg.
If I had my way, I'd destroy the RPA in a heartbeat. There wouldn't be no RPA here in Richmond or anywhere else. Bernie Sanders is their god. Communist regime. Cuba, North Korea, China. If you don't believe me, look at the statistics yourself. People haven't been around, you haven't been to the city council meetings. No law, no order, supporting criminals. This is what the RPA does. They don't believe in government. Not one time did they respect our constitutional laws, not one. When I went in front of that city council, quote McLaughlin, we're gonna run the city council the way we wanna run it. There is no Brown Act. I know I've been kicked out about 30 times out of there, violating my First Amendment right. They don't believe it. If I had my way, I would take them out and do a lot of stuff to them, and I'll guarantee they won't be coming back. You cannot have a government that's going to support criminals. You cannot have a government that's going to go ahead and say, well, we're going to do what we want to do. they did right in their own eyes. It doesn't work like that. We have a government under the Constitution. They don't believe in the Constitution because they want to implement their own type of government. I've been fighting these people for the last 13 years. And I tell you, I almost got in a fist fight with Michael Parker. I had a chance to take him outside. I said, well, it's time to talk now. I won't even hesitate with you. And he ran away like a coward.
Thank you.
RPA.
Thank you. We now move to question 5. We will begin with Mr. Wassberg. Again, I want to thank the Hilltop Fairmede Neighborhood Council for crafting these questions, which I will read verbatim. If the new owners of Hilltop Mall, Prologis, would like a zoning change to start their development, which would create millions of dollars in revenue, jobs for Richmond residents, and desperately needed housing, do you think the zoning should be changed? And if so, to what use?
I think the zoning should be changed for all these big businesses to come into Hilltop, no matter what we have land for in space, because big business pays big money. They pay into their unemployment, your Social Security, your retirement. This is how the city gets their revenue. These small businesses don't pay hardly anything. I mean, you got these candidates here, they want to support small business. Don't make sense. I will change the zoning laws where we can have big business come in. Well, sure, I mean, you have to obey the law, you have to have plans, you just can't go and start building wild. Because like I say, we know for a fact the RPA is going to do what they're going to do. Satisfy them. They don't care about anything else. But like I say, all I have to do is sign a piece of paper and take it to court. That's it. That's all I got to do. I'll get things done. Because like I say, see, the RPA don't want you to build. They want to close down Chevron. They want to close down all these big businesses. Don't make sense, people. How are you going to get a good paying job if you're going to work at a retail store? Little tiny store, that mom and pop store. They want to make Richmond green. Green jobs don't pay no money. Where are you going to work at the green factory making $25 an hour with full benefits? I will change the zoning laws to benefit the companies to coming in and housing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Prologis is a multinational corporation. They're smart. When they bought the property here in Richmond, they knew what the zoning was. They knew what the city plan that was devised by all of us, citizens, staff, council. They knew what that plan was, and that plan was for multi-purpose use. Now, Prologis buys the property and they tell us, we want to know what you want. But all the time, they know what they want and they refuse to tell us. What they want is a zoning change so they can build a transit center. Not a transit center, but a last mile delivery center, like Amazon, which brings trucks, traffic here, and it compromises our neighborhood, and it's contra to the city plan that all of us came up with. Prologis has not been honest with us. And we need to remember that this is our Richmond, their money, but it's our Richmond, our vision, and we need to stick to it, and we need to create a hilltop that is good for Richmond, that is good for all of us, that's good for our health, that's good for our environment, and good for the community.
Looking out in the audience, I don't see very many people that were here when we built the shopping center. I was here. I cast the #1 vote. Got 2 or 3 hands I see. At that time, it was a different circumstances. It was vacant land owned by Chevron, USA, I guess. Things have changed. That shopping center, what we had before, is obsolete. No one is shopping at Mason's, Capwell's, and so forth. Amazon has taken over just about everything. Prologis came in and they purchased that property. We don't understand marketing, what is there and what you can do and what you can't. We have to explore open-minded. as to how we can benefit from a community and how Prologic. People don't buy property to lose money. They buy property to make money. And we have to work together to come up with whatever development that we want and they want and compromise. Obviously, we want a shopping center, we want a grocery store. But the final analysis is that we have to work with Prologic as a team.
In my career in peace building, I've been in a lot of places around the world where there's been a violent struggle for one group to take over after another. Fortunately, we're not dealing with that here yet. But if this pendulum of party politics keeps swinging back and forth, it will turn into a wrecking ball. The idea that now it's our turn to own the table is not a recipe for success. It's true that someone unfairly owned the table before. The answer to that is not to push them out of the way and own it for yourself. The answer to that is to get everyone to the table. That's what we ought to be doing with Prologis. Now, I don't know if they're lying because I haven't seen their cards yet. Are they in the business of logistics and transfer centers? Yeah. And so we need to have that conversation. I agree that we need to be transparent, we need to understand everything, and if whatever they want to do isn't going to work out, they should know that sooner rather than later so they can leave and someone else can buy the property. But better yet, imagine if we could truly partner with them and work towards something that we could all believe in. So the answer to should we change the zoning or not should only be done if the overwhelming majority of Richmond residents actually want that. And that would be only as a result of a truly collaborative, cooperative process whereby we co-create that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. We have officially passed the halfway point in our debate with these questions wonderfully crafted by the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council. I want to take a moment to thank the candidates for participating, our hosts for having us, and our great audience both here in Hilltop Community Church and at home in Richmond and all around the world in our streaming services. Please like and share the live stream as soon as possible so that more people can see this enriching discussion. Question 6. We're going to begin with you, Mr. Dunning. Companies and dealerships are leaving Richmond because they feel Measure U is unfair. What would you do if elected to keep good businesses from leaving?
You're going to hear the figure 70 or 72% of Richmond voters passed Measure U. What they passed was a statement that said, essentially, if you want safer and cleaner streets, youth programs, and other great things that we all want, everybody wants, if you want these things, vote yes on Measure U. And there was marketing that went around that said, it's fair, it's fair. Well, the fine print on there said, oh, and by the way, it means moving to gross receipts and charge from this percent to this percent. And most people don't know what that means, frankly. Not that they can't figure it out, but that when you see what you see, of course you're going to vote yes. However, if the fine print there said, do you agree to raise tax on some businesses as much as 8,000%, I don't think for a second that you get 72% of our voters supporting that. I've met 3 people of the 4,000 people I've talked to across the city. I've met 3 people who are in favor of the current situation with Measure U. Maybe there's a few more. But here's the deal. In order to fix it, a whole ballot measure can be tricky, but within the ordinance, we can renegotiate the rates to be more reasonable. Even if the companies that are being overcharged don't leave, what we're doing right now is broadcasting a signal to any prospective companies not to come here. So we need to be more reasonable and more fair. Thank you.
I don't know if there are any businesses in the audience, but I can tell you that the city of Richmond has the highest taxes in the Bay Area, if not in the state. The Measure U has created havoc. Costco, most of you shop there. Talking to Lamar, our taxes went from about $25,000 to over $500,000. They were considering moving to Hilltop because the store is just crowded. You can't hardly get in there on a weekend. No city, 100,000 population thereabout, has 2 car stores. Costco contribute more sales taxes than any other establishment in this city. Now, that was an opportunity that we are missing. The automobile group, who contribute significant taxes, are looking at moving out of Richmond. We have to respect our business community if we want to keep businesses that provide jobs and tax revenue in the city.
I'll restate the question. Companies and dealerships are leaving Richmond because they feel Measure U is unfair. What would you do, if elected, to keep good businesses from leaving?
Currently, I don't know of any businesses that's left, but I do know that when we passed the minimum wage, many companies talked about leaving, but they didn't. Now, when we passed this, of course, it didn't say raise sales tax 8,000%. That would be ridiculous to raise everyone's sales tax to 8,000%. What it did say was it would raise the tax 0.5% to 0.4%. That's less than 2% of all the money that they bring in. Now, if the taxes were 8,000% increased, it just tells you how little they were paying. For instance, look at your property tax. Your property tax is way more than what Kinder Morgan, what the Santa Fe Rail Line paid in business tax. They paid $800, about $900. So consider that to your property tax. Is that fair? No. The problem is that the measure was written so that we can lower it, but we can't raise it. So if we lower it so that it's not fair, there's nothing we can do.
Measure U was a con game. The lawyers wrote it to trick the people. They say they're going to tax the big business, give it to police and fire. Okay, well then why the police are leaving that? Don't make sense. Richmond City of Commerce condemned the RPA, even Eduardo, make them look like they're evil against big business. Like I said, big business paid big money. The only reason why, actually Measure U can be overridden by the government. We don't need the voters' approval, because that's how our government works. It was like that in Proposition 8. It's like that on all the other initiatives that the people passed, but the government stepped in, said it was unconstitutional, so they redid it. That's how our government works. It's just amazing how he could just sit there and say people are going to benefit. The poor is going to benefit. The reason why they did Measure U because it's the city bank. Very few people know about the city bank. The question was asked by Nat Bates, where are you going to get the money? And these bankers says, from you. This is why they have Measure U, so they can get all this money for the big business and give it to the poor and give it to the have-nots. So they don't have to go out and work. This is your tax money, people. This is your tax money for the police, the fire, recreation, maintenance. This is where your money's going to go to, into a bunch of corrupt, no-profit bankers. Watch, it's going to happen.
Thank you. Next question. Residents complain about quality of life issues, illegal dumping, dirty streets, potholes, fireworks, sideshows, donuts, etc. What is your plan to address these quality of life issues? Mr. Wassberg.
Well, we know for a fact that the RPA was sponsoring people having sideshows. Let's have a place where they could go ahead and break the law, reckless driving, people getting hurt, a few people getting killed. Most of the dumping is in Iron Triangle on the south side. Sure, you'll see a lot of, very few stuff you see around here. You gotta have more police, all right? You gotta convince the people, say, hey, you wanna get rid of your garbage? Just call us up, we'll come over and pick it up for free. No problem. Okay, don't be a litter bug, all right? But the potholes, years ago, the taxpayer was calling in this road tax, right? That the visitors are going to pay more taxes than the people that live here. There's money there. There's all kinds of money there, but the city council do not want to let it go. Because like they want to sponsor this city bank. This is what they're doing. This is why they're holding back the money. If you get rid of the RPA, you put some people on the city council that's going to do right for the people, then you'll get things fixed around here in Richmond. This is why Richmond has been so messed up for the last 16 years, because the RPA has been controlling the city council. This is why Richmond is like this in the first place. Believe me, it's true.
I'm not sure what the question was.
No problem, thank you. I will repeat. People complain about quality of life issues, illegal dumping, dirty streets, potholes, fireworks, sideshows, donuts, etc. What is your plan to address these quality of life issues?
Well, my plan is to get the finances into the city so we can take care of many of these problems. Measure U will bring money so that we can have more abatement. It will bring money so we can fix the potholes, clear the streets. It will bring money to up social services like library, parks. It will do a lot for infrastructure, improving infrastructure. And it will do a lot to fill in all the empty positions that the city has. The city can't do the work that they're required to do without personnel to do that, and we need to hire them so that we have the staff that can do the work that you see needs done. In terms of the other issues, we need to be preventative, and we're doing that. We have ONS, which helps reduce recidivism as well as mentors youth who might go down the wrong path. We have YouthWorks, which gives our kids the opportunity for a youthful employment. So we are doing things, and we need to continue to do them so that our city can become the city that it needs to be, but we need money.
If I'm elected mayor, the first thing I will do is reinstate the standing committees, which consist of finance and the public safety. Staff runs this city. This is a lazy council. We get our packet on a Friday thereabout and we vote. We don't have the interaction to understand what is going on and why is this on the agenda. That's why we spend too much time at the council meeting talking and arguing with each other, trying to get information at the city council. You get your information at your standing committees. The council become assertive. Then you begin able to direct. We want this done, we want this done. Jan know how it's done. Arto know how it's done. Standing committees, you would come in and you would say, look, we have a problem here or there. That's what we're going to do about it. This council do nothing but sit there on a Tuesday night and argue among themselves. They don't interact. They take no action. They follow what the staff stick underneath their nose. Occasionally, there'll be a few that will argue. But this council needs to get to work and start taking that $10,000 a year salary.
I hope standing committees could help. At the end of the day, though, if the council is so politically divided that they don't want to listen to anything other than their own ideas, then it might not really make a difference. But yeah, it's a good starting place. If that's a place to collaborate, fantastic. And Nat, I would love for your advice and counsel on that if I happen to get elected. These issues are really about what are we prioritizing. If you look at all the things that come up on our agenda, how often do you see something to this effect? Not too long ago, there actually was something on the agenda about, doing infrastructure to try to do circles or bop stops or whatever, something that would be built that would prevent, people from doing sideshows. Well, that's great, but the way it was done, it was totally political. It had nothing to do with who needed it most in the city. It had to do with whom they knew on the council. So that's a whole issue right there. But real quick, in our neighborhood right here, this is more than just quality of life. This is life. Someone was killed by someone spinning donuts in the neighborhood not more than a half mile from here. In my running through Fairmede, I met two people who talked about stopping donuts in their intersections, one with a golf club, the other with a 9mm handgun. Both of those situations suggest that they didn't feel like they could call the police because they probably knew there weren't enough to come. We need more enforcement too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The City Council is considering a community bank funded with taxpayer money. Would you be in favor of a community bank for the City of Richmond that uses taxpayer money to provide potentially high-risk loans secured by taxpayer dollars? Loans that other banks would not make. Let's begin. Shawn Dunning.
In principle, the idea of a community bank could be really great. We need to know if we can trust the leadership behind it, though. Is this truly a community bank referring to all of Richmond that benefits us all, that there's true equity in this? Or is it something else? I don't really know, but I'm having a hard time trusting some of the leadership that's pushing it. Just look at the way Measure U was pushed through. We were already getting $3 million a year in sales tax from those car dealerships. So it's not that we weren't getting money from them, we're getting it the way most cities get taxes from businesses, through sales tax and property tax. When we jack it up, when we treat people fundamentally unfairly in relation to neighboring cities, you might not like the fact that we live in a market, but we do. And they're simply going to leave, and we're simply not going to get others to come. So this notion of a bank conjures up all sorts of questions about how we invest, how we spend, who makes the decisions about how that money is spent. I think first we need to get to the point where our leaders are truly representing the 116,000 people in Richmond. And when we have confidence that that is happening, maybe we can talk about a community bank. Thank you.
Well, it sounds good, community bank, but it all depends on the management. Community banks can be favoritism. We give it to our friends, and those who are not our friends get nothing. I trust the credit union. You want money? Go to the credit union. They're not political. Anytime you put a political identity in government, you're going to get politics. And there are going to be those that have and those who have not. And those will get and those will get not. I don't trust politicians putting any kind of community banking together. If it's done, let it be done. The churches, they have credit unions, they do an excellent job. They don't pay favoritisms. As I said, you go to the credit union, and you don't have to be an employee to be in the credit union. Travis has one up here at Hilltop. Co-op credit union has one around City Hall. There are a number of credit unions. They are organized, they're experienced, and they know what they're doing. You start a community bank with a bunch of amateurs, and you're going to have nothing but chaos. I don't support community bank, especially if it's controlled by the RPA.
Thank you. I'm going to reread the question. The City Council is considering a community bank using taxpayer money. Would you be in favor of a community bank for the City of Richmond that is funded with taxpayer money and may provide high-risk loans secured by taxpayer dollars, loans that other banks would not make?
Yeah, I understand how you can't trust what you don't understand. I also understand that credit unions are not community banks in terms of what we're talking about. We're talking about a bank that is composed of government agencies that hold their money in common to be borrowed from by government agencies. What this does is it keeps the money in the community. Right now, we lost $66 million to a bank in Canada because that's who we're dealing with. We can lose it to other places who bank in Delaware. But if we have a bank here in the Bay Area that is composed of people in the Bay Area, all that interest stays here in the community and it generates more revenue for our cities to use. Public banks have been in North Dakota for ages, and is one of the few states that has been able to maintain their fiscal ability to continue. So we're hoping that we can do the same thing in the Bay Area. We need to keep the money at home, and we do that with community banks.
This is all Gil McLaughlin's idea in the RPA. You can't not use taxpayers' money to fund a bank. The taxpayers' money was not meant to be like this. It was meant to support the city, police, fire, recreation, maintenance. Just like I told you before, I even answered the question, even before he even said it. It's all a scam. Matter of fact, I talked to one of these bankers, right? They had us so twisted and turned. I said, why are you using our taxpayers' money? They said, well, no, we're not going to do that. I said, I just heard Nat Bates ask you the question. And they try to twist the whole thing, and they try to change the subject, and they cut me off on Zoom. I told you, it's a scam. This is what they're doing. And you people are going to suffer for a bunch of people that's going to go in there and get all these loans, and they're going to default on the loans, and they're going to just walk away and say, hey, too bad. And who's going to pay for it? And this is why they're going to raise your property tax. Once the taxes starts getting low on the business, they're going to go after your property. Then you're going to have to pay higher tax property. And you can't pay your tax on the property. They're going to take your property just like TOPA, this eminent domain. It's all a scam, people. Don't go for it. As I'm there, I'll try everything I can to stop it. Not one penny of our taxpayers' money is going to go to that bank.
Thank you. I want to again thank the candidates for your well-reasoned answers and for generally staying within the time constraints. Thank you so much, Don Gosney, for your good work on the timekeeping so far. We've been able to move through this debate expeditiously. We now have 2 more questions and closing remarks, and they will be good ones, so please don't leave us. Instead, like, share, have others join us in this debate. We'll begin with you, Mr. Wassberg. Question number 9. The City Council promoted and voted to put Measure P, a rent control measure, on the November ballot. Measure P ensures that rent adjustments will not keep up with inflation or cost of living. Should the council have consulted the city's own rent board for input before placing Measure P on the ballot?
Well, I'm really not familiar with Measure P, but I can tell you one thing, that the city council does not want anything to happen unless they want it their way. I mean, you have to have cost of living, right? You have to get a raise and so forth. But I don't see how, the city council, the RPA, they're just going to do what they're going to do. They don't care about anything. You have to have growth. But like I say, if your wages don't go up, how are you going to live? Because like I said, back in the day, you could have one rent will cover one paycheck cover the rent. Right? We all remember that, but now you need 4 checks to cover the rent. Now, I don't know what kind of scam that the RPA is trying to do, but the bottom line is they don't want growth at all. They want to do what they're going to do, no matter what. They're going to try to keep the people poor. They don't want the people to excel. All the big business, probably Chevron, I wouldn't be surprised if Chevron closed down. I yield my time.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
It's about Measure P and Measure L.
I'll repeat the question for the benefit of everyone. The City Council promoted and voted to put Measure P, a rent control measure, on the November ballot. Measure P ensures that rent adjustments will not keep up with inflation or cost of living. Should the council have consulted the city's own rent board for input before placing Measure P on the ballot?
Well, we know that rent control has prevented homelessness. Anytime the rent goes up inexorably, and this is for people on fixed incomes, they can't pay it. If they can't pay it, they move out. And where do they move to? Who knows? Because there's no other place for them to move to. So we need to keep people in their homes, in their apartments, because that's where they can afford to be. We do need to build more affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I mean low-income housing and workforce development, so that there are units for people to move to. Otherwise, we end up with development with displacement. But we don't want that. We want to keep Richmond residents in Richmond. We don't want them moving far away because they can't afford to live here. They deserve to live in the city that they helped build, that their families helped build. So it's really difficult to hear in here, and so I get lost on exactly what it is, but I am a proponent for Measure P and for Measure L.
One of the advantages I have is being around politics for so long. And I can smell a rat when I see it. Measure P was put on the agenda by the RPA for only one purpose and one purpose only. And that was to galvanize the renters to come to the polls and support the RPA and Vice Mayor Eduardo. It was unnecessary. Measure M, the other original measure, has already clauses in there that prohibits, and they control what type and amount of rent is increases imposed. For an example, did you know that the Rent Control Board has never increased a renter's rent more than 3.2% since they have been in existence? The Rent Control has the authority, not the City Council. And the Rent Control Board is not going to allow the landlords to jack up the price. It was a scam, and the people ought to know it.
I don't know if Nat's really onto something or not here, maybe, but I will say that the framing of Measure P doesn't seem to really connect to what the espoused purpose is, and so then you gotta wonder. So if the purpose is we want to help people out because of inflation, because times are tough, why not tie it to that? You know, I was there that night when the debate happened late into the night at City Council, and many people spoke up saying, this is good, we should help our renters. But how about we put a sunset clause in there? Why don't we tie it to what's actually happening with inflation? Not just permanently knock this down to 3% in perpetuity until someone else comes along and the pendulum swings back the other way. It's not rational. It's not fair in the long run, considering that we do live in a market. Now, you might not like that. Again, I know there's a lot of people that are just against the fact that we live in a market, but we do. We're not on an island. And so when policies like this happen, what it does is it actually leads to less development in Richmond. It leads to less affordable housing in Richmond. I talk to landlords or potential landlords all over the city who say, forget it, I'm not even going to think about it anymore. because one policy after another is clearly above and beyond what's necessary, and the end result is actually the opposite of what they're after.
Thank you. We have come to our final question. We'll do the final question and then have closing statements for each candidate. Thanks again so much to the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council for crafting these questions. The final question will begin to my far left with Mr. Dunning, and the question is, the city of Richmond has spent millions on homelessness issues with very little results. What would you do differently that you think has not yet been done?
In my time running around Richmond and meeting a lot of people, I've spent hours and hours and hours meeting directly with folks who are currently living unhoused all over our city. Right now we have about 632 by the last count. We are not serving them well enough. And when I say this, I believe the premise here is that it's a crime against humanity that we have people involuntarily living on our streets. Now, some of them may be voluntary, that's a different ballgame. But for those who genuinely are down and out and could really use some help, we ought to be smart about how to do that. Well, there's not a lot of smart things happening around here in that regard, because millions and millions and millions are just being thrown at it, the can is getting kicked, and I don't see any long-term solution. Well, 2 weeks ago, I decided to fly out to San Antonio, Texas, to check out a program that I've been talking about for a while, called Haven for Hope. There, at $26 per person per night, with an average stay of 4 months, they claim 92% success, meaning a year later, someone who went through that is no longer homeless. And the reason is because it's genuinely a collaborative effort between about 150 different stakeholders, led by private individuals who are passionate about this, but partnering with the government. We need to do something like that.
Homelessness is a national and a state problem. No municipality can accommodate and pay for the services that the homeless demand. This city just spent $2.some million trying to relocate 50 to 60 individuals off the Ryan Road. We got the Castro Ranch Road. And I ask you, what community will volunteer to bring the homeless into your neighborhood? Our PA feels as though they can do that. They try to put them up at City Hall. Remember, they tried to put them out here at Hilltop. The community was totally opposed to it. Many of the homeless are not Richmond residents. They're coming from encampments that are being closed, like Berkeley, Oakland, San Francisco, and elsewhere. And I ask the question, why is it that there's no homeless encampments in Hercules, in Pinole? And because they have rules and regulations and they enforce them. I've asked also for a comprehensive report from the city manager of how we're going to deal with the homeless, because this council has no answers.
Thank you. I will read the question again. The city of Richmond has spent millions upon millions of taxpayers' dollars on homelessness with very little results. What would you do differently that you think has not been done?
Well, we began trying to find a place for them to stay. Obviously, there's not any neighborhoods in the city of Richmond that wants them, that cares for them. So we had to keep them where they are, because if we disperse them, they have to go somewhere. And that somewhere is another place, another encampment that will have to be dispersed. And when that's dispersed, it will create other encampments in other places that will have to disperse. And so it's a cycle that never ends until we deal with the problem. And the problem is lack of housing. The problem is lack of opportunity. The problem is lack of mental health care, lack of substance abuse aid, lack of economic justice. So, what we did at Ryden Road was we had been asking them questions after questions and then attending to their needs as opposed to attending to a method to have them move onward to something better. And that's what we did at Riding Road. We asked them, how did you get here? What do you need in order to move on? After we got answers to that question, we came up with plans to help them move on. And now if you go down Riding, it's clear.
You know, they tried to settle a homeless encampment up here, right? People didn't want it. Tried to set a homeless encampment down at the city hall. People didn't want that either. At Riding Road, they paid them $1,500 to take off. They told the vehicles, they said their vehicles wasn't going to work. Yeah, they got their money, they started off, they took off like that. Most of these people in Richmond are homeless don't want to work. They had a chance to come up here, the job's there, but they didn't want to do it. Most of these people don't even want to work. A person can better their life if they want to. There's resources out there. I know. I'm an expert. Been there, did that. I see it every day on Dam Road in San Pablo in El Sobrante. Go down to McDonald. Go down in San Pablo. Cross information. These people want to live like this. I see it every day. These people, they live like animals. You haven't seen this. You haven't lived it, so you wouldn't really know. Like I said before, a person can help themselves. It's not the government's job to give these people a bunch of freebie everywhere. This is what the RPA is doing. Now what are you going to do at Castle Road? They're going to go down there and give them a check. They're going to leave, and they're going to go somewhere else in Richmond. The bottom line is, you're going to have to start with the young people to get them into trades as soon as they get out of high school, so they have a career, so they're ready to go at 25.
We have now completed our questions, which were provided by the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council. Thank you so much, candidates. This brings us to the opportunity for the closing statement from each of you. We will have 2 minutes for a robust closing statement from each candidate, and then we'll have a brief closing statement from your moderator in the audience. With that, let's begin. Mark Wassberg, closing statement, 2 minutes.
Well, I'm sure all you know how I feel and other candidates feel. I mean, these people out there say, we're going to do this, I'm going to do that, we're going to do this, They're not going to do nothing because the RPA still controls the vote on the city council. You're going to have 2 lame duck mayors that can't even get nothing done. Look what they're doing to Tom Budd. Lame duck mayor can't even get nothing done for 5-6 years ever since he got in the beef with the RPA. Now, I'm going to be honest with you people. You may not like what I'm going to say, but that's just too bad. We got 2 homosexuals running for office. Now, I'll guarantee you put these 2 homosexuals in office, you'll have every gay flag on every street corner. This guy here, you put him as mayor, Richmond is going to be destroyed. You want your children to be raped and verbally raped? Tell little Johnny that he has a vagina? Tell Mary Jane has a penis? This is what's going to happen. When Becca was on the city council, she was supporting young boys having same sex. That's why we jumped on her. This is what the RPA is going to do. You think I'm kidding? You just wait. The bottom line is you don't vote for the people in the RPA. We know who they are, Caesar and Jaime, Jaime, whatever his name is. I'm telling the truth, people. I'm telling you what's going to happen. San Francisco has the highest AIDS and monkeypox in the nation. Why? Because of the homosexuals. I know you may not like it, but I'm just being frank. I don't care what you think. I'm just saying reality. I'm just saying what God has created in this world. You're in God's house, you're going to have to know what God does. And I tell you, it's going to be a disaster. The people are going to say, hey, you said you was going to do this and do that. Well, I'm just only one vote. Well, how come you didn't tell us that you couldn't get it done just by 1 vote? Hey, I'm sorry, the city council already made their decision. You see the con game, what's going on? Vote for me and I'll get things done.
Closing statement, 2 minutes, Eduardo Martinez.
Thank you. I told you about the issue that I have with people making up these cult fantasies. And as you saw here, it continues. Even with my opponents, they continue this RPA cult narrative that we're one mind. And as I've explained to you, there are times when we don't vote together. There are times when I vote with Nat. In fact, Nat and I were the only ones who stood up for a safety and a finance committee. We're the only ones. The mayor, the RPA, voted against us. But it wasn't the RPA, it was the council members. When the council members are up there, they are council people, and they vote with their conscience, and they vote for their communities. Just like Nat Bates and I did. We put things forward because we think that's the best thing to do. And this idea of a mind meld is so ridiculous that I can't believe that it's continually being said over and over and over again. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I am speechless. I sit here and I look at these people and I know they're intelligent. I know they know better. But for some reason, it just has to come out of their mouth over and over, hoping that you're going to believe that I'm controlled by some cult. I'm not. I'm a representative of the city, and when I talk to developers, they are glad, and they have said that I'm the only council member who actually reads their proposals, aside from the mayor.
Thank you for the opportunity. I sort of feel at home again. Let me just say that public safety has to be the number one. Everyone wants to feel safe. Another that we didn't talk about was fiscal responsibility. You cannot operate a city with finances. You should devote a little bit more time on that. It's like your household. You can't spend money that you don't have. From my perspective, if I want an attorney, a doctor, some professional person, I want someone that has a resume. I want somebody that has experience. I want somebody that has wisdom. I want someone that's been in the job for a period of time, not coming fly by night, or not being there for a few days, a week. I want someone that is knowledgeable, intelligent, and someone that just don't talk the talk, but can walk the walk. That's an old biblical saying. Let my work speak for me. Let my work speak for me. Every one of you out there, Mr. Mom, Jan, the whole stuff, you know this is fun. You know what I've done. You know what I'm capable of doing. And you also know what I'm not capable of doing. You gotta have leadership. Understanding the job, being on the job. Learn how to work as a team. I was honored to get the Hall of Fame for Canada. It just wasn't Nat Bates. It was our team that worked together, that came forward and had an outstanding season. The city council has to be that kind of team if we want to succeed here in the city of Richmond. Thank you kindly.
Leadership and teamwork has been my entire career for the last 20 years. And, you know, quick example there. One of my clients was a hospital in Connecticut. Over a 9-month period, I rolled out emotional intelligence training with them and collaborative leadership training. They were in a lot of turmoil and they had a hard time getting along and making good decisions. And over a 9-month period, I helped that hospital, specifically the emergency department, run a lot better. They had experts there. They had cardiologists. They had all sorts of folks. But just for the record, if I win this, one of my first calls is going to be to Nat Bates for his expertise. I'm not running to be the cardiologist, I'm running to run the hospital so that we can actually get things done and work together with all the different experts in the room. There is so much wisdom, so much experience, so much passion. in Richmond, California. We have 116,000 people from all walks of life. Nobody else has put the effort that I have into getting out there and hearing from everyone. You know, conventional politics tells you, figure out who the likely voters are, spend all your time with them, and forget the rest because they're not worth your time. Well, I did the opposite. Maybe it's foolish, maybe not, but I'll tell you one thing, I learned a lot about Richmond in running over 450 miles through every single neighborhood in the city and hearing a lot of stories firsthand. Every single topic we've talked about tonight, I could tell you stories from residents who shared the truth with me. So when I say that I know that the common goal is a better Richmond that is safe, clean, and fair, that's not because I cooked that up and wanted to push it on people. That's because first, what I did was listen. And as your mayor, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna listen, I'm gonna bring us together, all of us together, and leverage all this passion towards something better for everyone. Thank you.
That brings us to the conclusion of our event. Again, I'm Robert Rogers, your volunteer moderator. I want to thank all the candidates for participating tonight and speaking to our community. I want to especially thank the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council for organizing and crafting the questions. I want to thank Hilltop Community Church for providing this beautiful venue, this house of worship. I want to thank all of the residents here in the audience tonight and also all over the web watching this great discussion. Thank you so much. Lastly, I do want to thank Don Gosney for your great work with videography and also the timekeeping. And I want to ask everyone here and at home to join me this holiday season in doing 3 things. Cast your vote, do some local shopping to support local business and support your community's tax base, and if you can, do some service for a community member or someone in your community. If we all do that, Richmond is an even greater place. Thank you all again. Thank you to the audience, and good night.
Well, good job, gentlemen.
Thank you.